Today, India celebrates the anniversary of attaining her freedom from foreign domination way back in 1947. Even as I rejoice with all my fellow countrymen and countrywomen, my fellow citizens, I'm also inclined to wonder what freedom should mean to us and what freedom should have meant to us. Because the fact that the foreign oppressor has departed does not mean that we have succeeded in establishing India on a sure foundation of freedom. There is no guarantee that we understand the meaning and scope of freedom aright. This is obviously not the occasion for me to give an extended discourse on freedom, either from a philosophical or from a political or from a spiritual, theological, ethical standpoint. In this video, I want to share with you only just one aspect of freedom, which is closest to my heart. What does freedom mean to me? Or what is the sort of freedom, or what is that aspect of freedom that I cherish most? For me as an individual, freedom is the condition of life in which I am able to express the best that is within me. Something that has always astonished as well as dispirited me over the years is the fact that the vast majority of people in the world fail to express the best that is in them. Somehow it comes so naturally to us to express the worst and the meanest in us. And that in spite of the fact that all of us would like to entertain a noble idea of ourselves. Otherwise, why would we resent when somebody maligns us or somebody calls us names, somebody abuses us? It's only because we think well of ourselves. It's because we believe that there is a noble aspect to our being which is not being recognized through this abuse, or the abuse does serious harm to our self image as people of good intentions and good substance. Yet, when we are free to act, we don't bother to express the best in us. So, on this day, when Indians as a whole, 1.4 billion people in the world, celebrate the anniversary of our freedom, it is necessary to ask ourselves what freedom should mean to us. Now, the fact that external compulsions, external systems of oppression have been dismantled does not mean that we have attained the sort of freedom that I just referred to. Freedom in the simplest sense of the word. Even when there's no hindrance, external hindrance to our expressing the best and the noblest in us, still we continue to express the mediocre and perhaps sometimes even the meanest in our being, in our nature. Why does that happen? In spite of the fact that there is no gain, there is no advantage in expressing the worst and the meanest in us. And in spite of the fact that deep down within us there is a craving to express the best in us. Why does this happen? Or to put it in the words of the English poet T.S. Eliot, why is there this shadow, or if you like, the gulf between the intention and the effect? The gulf between what we really want to do and what we actually end up doing. This is something that St. Paul agonizes over, as we found in the 7th chapter of his letter to Romans, where he says that I really want to do what is good, and I know what is good and what is bad, good or evil. And I want to do the good that I know and avoid the evil that I recognize. But unfortunately, I end up doing the evil that I despise and fail to do the good that I really love. Then he says, how can I understand this predicament? Then he gives to himself an explanation. He says that there is a principle at work in my members that makes me do so. And he then goes on to identify that principle as the principle of death. So he says, I'm dominated by the principle, not the fact, but the principle of death, from which I need deliverance. So this is purely an internal sort of deliverance, which is a precondition for genuine freedom. To understand this in practical terms, let us think of ourselves when we first got the job. We dreamt of getting a reasonably good employment, and we got it. Many of us were fortunate enough to get jobs of our liking. But the enthusiasm to express the best in us and continue to do so over a long period of time evaporated in quick time. And gradually we settled down to expressing, if not the worst, at least the mediocre dimensions of our potentialities and possibilities. So, does it really mean that we are not yet ready for our freedom? We are incapable of living out our freedom in a meaningful manner? It is this aspect that I believe India as a nation needs to now concentrate on. It's not enough to celebrate freedom. It's even more important to be ready for freedom, to be ready to put freedom to the most meaningful and the noblest applications and expressions possible. Otherwise, freedom will become an enemy to itself. We may use our freedom to undermine, abrogate, nullify the freedom of others. Unfortunately, India is sliding into that state of affairs. And to understand this aright, it would be helpful for a little while, very briefly, to consider the psychology of slavery, which always operates within the framework of freedom. Freedom and slavery, freedom and bondage, are like the two sides of the same coin. They're not far away from each other. If we don't educate ourselves regarding the fundamentals of freedom and attain the maturity and sense of responsibility to use freedom aright, then we create systems of bondage, systems of slavery, and we become enemies of freedom. So, there is a need in India, I dare say, to educate the people of India to merit freedom. This is the task that should have begun in 1947, as Nehru said at the stroke of the midnight hour. When the whole world sleeps, India will awake to life and freedom. I'm afraid Nehru got it wrong. India did not awake to life and freedom. Freedom came to India, but I'm not convinced that India awoke, in the true sense of the word, in the sense that I'm implying here, to life and freedom. And today, many people live in this country alienated from the true meaning of freedom. And that not merely the Dalits, the Adivasis, the minorities who are targeted here, there, and everywhere. It also applies to members of the majority community who do not know how to express their freedom right, or do not know how to express the best and the noblest in them via freedom, but think that freedom is a license that allows them to terrorize others or to put others at a disadvantage. Take, for example, the raging controversy regarding the impending Bihar assembly elections and the special intensive revision of voter list initiated by the Election Commission of India. some 65 million people are sought to be excluded from their voting rights under the pretext that they are fake voters. It's nobody's argument that fake voting should be allowed. In fact, fake voting should be combated at the same time with the same degree of determination. No legitimate citizen should be excluded from the privilege of exercising his freedom of choice in the political context on the premise or suspicion that he or she is likely to vote for this party or that party. So, even as we celebrate our freedom, there is the specter of the Bihar election looming large over the horizon of our freedom. And that specter shakes its gory hair, to use an image from Shakespeare's Macbeth, at us and challenges us to answer the question, are you really ready for freedom? Will you be responsible and inspired custodians of freedom? So, if we don't become mature in the understanding and practice of freedom, we will use democratic processes to murder democracy. And in this context, I'm reminded of what Arthur Koestler, one of my favorite authors of the 20th century, wrote about the ascendancy of Hitler in Germany. And if I may recall his words from memory, and I may not be 100% perfect, he says, Hitler used perfectly legitimate democratic means and processes to murder democracy. I consider that to be a warning that's of increasingly relevant application throughout the world, and particularly to India. If we don't understand the ethics, the culture, and the spirituality of freedom, we could use freedom to annul freedom. And in fact, it's a universal principle that anything that is abused will generate from within itself the logic of its own annulment. So if you use freedom, or if you abuse freedom, I'm afraid that tendency is on the rise. That's the reason why I make bold to share these reflections with you. If we abuse freedom, that process will generate from within itself the logic and the compulsion for abrogating freedom. We lose our freedom. So, freedom is never a safe and unmixed blessing. In order to keep it a pure blessing, we have to become mature in the understanding and practice of freedom. If I have to choose between celebrating freedom and understanding the meaning and the discipline of freedom, I would choose the latter in preference to the former. Ideally, I should have both, but if I have to choose between the two, I would be in no uncertainty or in dilemma about it. I'll choose the latter, namely the duty to understand and practice freedom in a mature and responsible manner. So this is my Independence Day wishes for all my fellow countrymen, all my fellow citizens. May our country move towards a more mature understanding and practice of freedom so that the citizens of India as a whole, minorities, majority, community, everybody together become good and faithful stewards of this precious, invaluable gift of freedom. I once again greet every Indian in every walk of life, in every nook and corner of this beautiful country, on this day, or as we celebrate the anniversary of our attaining freedom. May true freedom prevail in our land. May every Indian be free to attain the fullest possible development of his or her potential, so that we bring the full range of our collective energies, skills, and possibilities to the noble and adventurous task of nation building. And on this occasion, I'm reminded of Geetanjali, hymn number 35, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake. That's my prayer for India, especially the words, where the mind is without fear, where the mind is without fear, where the mind is without fear. Jai Hind.